Hello everybody, welcome to Catherine Sews. Thanks so much for joining me today. I thrifted this turtleneck because I thought the fabric was really cool. It'll go with so many different things in my wardrobe and it was a great deal. So I grabbed this even though it's too tight everywhere and I'm just not comfortable wearing clothes that are that tight, but I knew I'd be able to do something with it. So later on in my travels, I also thrifted this skirt. Like, look at that fabric. It's just so fun. It's so fun and so cool. Would I ever wear this skirt? No, I would not, but I'll be able to use this fabric to make my turtleneck bigger. I think the two are really, really fun together, but the concept of how I'm going to do it is really going to open up a lot of windows for making things bigger. So I want to make the body bigger. I also want to make the sleeve just a little bit bigger, especially at the top part. And I think I'm going to lose the turtleneck too. I think I'm going to have to because of the way I'm doing this, but I think I'm going to be fine with that too. So that's why I've got one more piece of fabric, which is just this black ribbing. It's going to end up helping me open up the arm and bind the new neckline, but this is going to be the star of the show. I'm going to add a panel just to one side. So then you might be thinking, well, so one side's going to be bigger, the other side's going to be the exact same, but I'm going to keep it symmetrical by moving the center. So if that sounds confusing, then let me show you what I mean on paper. So here is the bodice of my turtleneck, or you could do this with a t-shirt. I'm going to cut it right about there. Then I'm going to sew a new piece onto my bodice. So I'll extend the bodice out like that. So one side is now extended. And now when I say I'm going to move the center, this is what I mean. I'll fold them right sides together in half symmetrically. And then all I need to do is change the neckline. So that little skinny turtleneck neckline will just become a little bit of a wider neck. And then the whole thing is made bigger. And the center is now here. And the fit is still symmetrical. Good. So it all begins with that first cut. I'll put my cut right here. I'll be replacing this skinny part with a piece that is wider. And then the center of the neckline will be here. That should work. So before I make that cut, I'm just going to remove the sleeves and the turtleneck. So when you're removing serging, it's either going to be a 3-thread serge or 4-thread serge, or it might be a chain stitch and a serge. For this one, I can see 2 lines of needle thread. So that means it's a 4-thread serge, and I need to pull out both of those needle threads. So you're just looking for the part that looks like a regular straight stitch. You don't want to pull on the loops. But once you get those needle threads off, it all just comes out easily. I'm using the word easily with a bit of caution. So there's a good side and a bad side to serging. Like the good side of serging is where you clearly see, especially that middle row of the needle thread. So that'll be a minute. I'll take off both sleeves and the turtleneck and then come right back. So both sleeves and the turtleneck are removed. And now I'm going to make that cut. There we go. No turning back now. So I don't need to shape the panel yet. I can just sew it to a piece of the fabric and shape it later. I'll be lining up the 2 hem ends together. That'll work fine. So I'm just checking to see, yeah, I need the full length of the skirt. The hem ends are just together here. I need the full length. So I'll get a straight edge here to start with. And I'll cut off that elastic. And then there's a tiny bit of shaping I'll need to do, and that's just the angle at the shoulder here. So I guess I will duplicate that angle by using the shoulder that is not cut. And I know I want at least 4 inches, but I can start off bigger. I might as well start off even with 6 inches. So I'll join these 2 edges together, right side together. So there's my panel ready to go. So I'm just going to flip them to be right side together. And it's these bottom edges that I really want to nail together nice and even, and the shoulder seam. So this is my chance to make sure it's the right length. If I need to adjust it at all, I can do it now. You can actually do this with just a scrap of knit fabric that you have. It doesn't have to be a full garment. But if you are using a scrap of fabric, just make sure that the lengthwise grain is this way and the maximum stretch is this way, right? We don't want to change the grain line because you just won't get the stretch that you need. I'll take you with me to the serger now because anytime I'm going off a finished edge like this, I'll show you my two little tricks, one for the beginning, one for the end. But basically, I'm just going to serge these edges together. If you don't have a serger, of course, you can just do a stretch stitch, like what I call the lightning stitch. And you can zigzag your edges or just a double line. Just you want to make sure you stretch a little bit as you go. There's not a ton of stretch in the lengthwise grain, but enough that you want to build in some stretch into the seam itself. At the beginning, I'm just going to serge a couple stitches. Leave my needles down, lift the presser foot up, bring that tail around and back under, and then go and serge right over that tail. And then at the bottom end here, when I'm going off of a finished edge, I'm going to go until my needles just clear the edge. You can see the top is getting pushed over. I want them to be really nicely lined up. Good. Once my needles are off, then I lift up, give a little wiggle, and flip. There we go. Flip it right over. Snuggle it back against the needles. Then I'll just serge up a couple inches and then chain off, so that my tail and thread can be safely cut off there and not be anywhere near my finished edge. Good. So my panel is set on and I'm loving the two fabrics together. I think that is super fun. With the center running down the row of these circles, it's actually going to be just perfect for me, I think. So I'm going to fold it right there. That's my new center. This is the original center. I'm moving it 1 inch off center, which means I'm adding 2 inches to the full front, which is 4 inches in the circumference. So I've got it folded in the middle of those circles all the way down. I was a little skimpy. I wish I'd added a little more than the 6 inches, but I think we're going to be fine. We'll be able to make that work. So now I'm just going to trim off, and it's really very little trimming on the side here. I was a little skimpy. I'll trim off around the armhole, and the front does come in more than the back, so I will correct that on the front in a second. But now I want to duplicate this neckline. Alrighty, so everything's looking good, but of course the neckline is now off center. This is one shoulder point and that's the other. So I'm just going to cut the back first, and then the front I can cut separately. And the same with that little bit of front armhole. So I just popped it back over my head just to make sure, and I drew where I wanted that front neckline to come down to. So you can see it was originally up here. So I'm just putting my new neck shoulder points together, and then I'll make the neckline symmetrical. I always want to come in at a right angle from that front fold so that I don't end up with a V. Okay, so there's my new neckline. The label is now off center. That's okay, but the neckline should be good like that. So I'll serge the left side seam together, and then it's just a matter of putting everything back together. Okay, so this time I'm starting at the bottom. So it's the same little trick that you saw before, just a couple stitches in. Lift, bring that tail around, and go. So this is the back of the shirt. I'm going to be cutting the front armhole in more, but first I'll just trim the back armholes to be the same. Because I'm making the sleeve a bit wider, I might need to drop the armhole down, but you'll just see sometimes knits are just so forgiving that you can get away with things like that. So here now I just want to cut that front layer. Then we're ready to do the sleeves. To widen the top of the sleeve now, I've just got my fabric folded here. So I've got 2 layers and I've drawn a long triangle that is 2 inches at the top and coming to nothing at the bottom. Again, you want to have the lengthwise grain this way, maximum stretch going across. So my little piece of knit is only 10 inches long, and so that's just gonna have to do. So I've taken the sleeves and opened them up about 12 inches, so a little bit longer than my triangle. And now I'm going to serge to one side and then serge to the other side. I think this is a double knit. I think it's the same on both sides. So the triangle's set on one side, and now just serge it to the other side. So I just want to keep my edge coming out here and then just blend right from the black into the gray. So then from the outside, that tapered piece just tapers off to nothing, so nice. And you never have to sew around that point. Good, so both sleeves like that. So here you'll get to see what that little point looks like from the other side. So see, this seam is kind of coming around like that. As long as my edge comes out at the bottom here, then I'm going to be fine. Okay, both sleeves are ready to go in. To insert the sleeves now, I want to have the body inside out and the sleeves right side out. And if there is a difference in the front and back of the sleeve, yes, I'd say this one's a bit wider, so that would tell me that this is going to be the front of the sleeve. So that means that this is the left sleeve. That means it wants to go on this side. So there's my little addition. These serger tails, I know they're annoying, but they'll get serged off in the next step. So my side seam is going to go right into the middle of that triangle. So I'm just seeing if the sleeve is going to fit in this armhole now, because the sleeve is now bigger. Is it still going to fit, or do I need to increase the size of the armhole? And look at that. I think I am just totally fine here. With that sleeve set nicely into the circle of the armhole, I'll just clip and then serge around both sleeves. So I like to have the sleeve side facing up so I can keep my eye on all these extra folds of fabric. And I'm going to start down here at the bottom edge of the sleeve, or the top edge of the side seam, I guess. Okay, so both sleeves are set. I'm going to try it on and make sure I'm happy with the fit before I do the neckline. So both sleeves are in, and they just have that black triangle at the bottom. They fit so much nicer, the whole body. I'm just loving how this is turning out. So all I have left to do is bind the neckline. So to do that, I'm going to take the neckline and kind of put it in half like this. My half neckline measurement is 13. So that's 50% of my neckline. I want the neck band to be 75% of the neckline. So that means I want half as much again. So half of 13 is 6.5. Plus the original 13 is 19.5. I'll give myself a little bit of seam allowance, so I'm going to cut the ribbing 20 inches long. So I've marked a piece that's 2 inches by 20 inches. So I'm just putting that 2-inch line along my edge, and then I'll pivot as needed to keep it there. Good. So at the serger, I'm just going to serge those edges together, but then I'll be switching to the regular sewing machine. Actually, not quite true. First thing I want to do is serge one of the long edges. And now I'll put it right sides together. So I'll give myself a little wax mark at my new centers. So I'm bringing the two shoulder seams together, and then just with my little scrap of soap, little wax mark or soap mark at the center front and at the center back. And then I also want to mark the halfway points. The halfway points are not the same as the shoulder seam because the front neck dips lower, right? So I'm bringing my front and back marks together, and then here's my halfway point. So it's just a little ahead of the shoulder seam. And then over on this side, I'll use my friction pen so I can see. And then I'm just going to pop the whole shirt inside out. So the neckline is now quarter marked and the whole shirt is inside out. The neckband I want to quarter mark as well. So I'm folding it in half, and I'll put a little wax mark at center front, and the wax mark goes to the seam. The seam is the center back. That gives me both halfway points as well. Good. Okay, then I'm just going to pin or clip all four of those matching points. There's center back, and then the halfway point, center front, and then halfway point. Okay, I can put a clip midway in all of those sections. It does make it a little easier because the band, remember, is only 75% the length of the neckline. So the band has to stretch a little bit. So having that clip halfway helps keep you on track. Always bringing edges together. And now I'm not going to serge this. I'm going to go to the regular machine. I'll use a ballpoint needle, but I'm going to sew this at about the 15 line or 5/8 line. I want to have enough room to be able to wrap this whole thing over and stitch it down again. So that 15 line or 5/8 line should be perfect. So now I'm going to start at that center back, and I did get my ballpoint needle in there. And the ballpoint needle is just better for stretch knits like this. You don't run the risk of making holes in your knit. So I'm just letting my edge come in right into the edge of the grid there, which is 15 millimeters from the needle or 5/8 of an inch. And I'm just kind of holding back a little bit so that the machine stretches that neckline for me. I'm using gray thread so that you can see, but I think I will switch to black for the final step. So by stretching it out as I sew, it still has loads of stretch afterward. I cannot break the thread. So now at the iron, I want to press that neckline with the seam allowance all coming up toward the neckband. And now I'm carefully wrapping that serged edge over the seam allowance, pinning it in the ditch of the seam there, so that it's catching the serged edge. It's such a nice way to finish off the neckline of a t-shirt. And then I'll just stitch right in the ditch. It's patient pinning, just flipping back and forth, making sure it looks good on the outside and that you're catching the edge on the inside. Good. I love it. Okay, so stitching right in the ditch now, so I can sink my needle down so I know I'm exactly in the right spot. And again, just a little stretch as I go. If I want to be able to stitch right in the ditch, I need to look at that little groove on my presser foot and guide that right into that ditch. And again, I'm stretching as I go. Another option, if you find that stitching in the ditch is a bit tricky, you can sew right up close to the fold. That can look really nice. You still have to be really consistent though for it to look good. Okay, so I just want to check it and make sure. I don't love that moment right there where I just was a smidge out of the ditch. You know, it shows, right? And then, oh, good, right close to it is another moment I don't like. And another one. Okay, I'm going to open up that section where I've gone up onto the edge and where I've missed it. So I'll just open up that section, maybe a little more. Here's what we want it to look like, where the stitching just disappears into the ditch. That section I really like. I love that. I cut the thread at both ends of the area that I want to remove and then pull that thread out. And then I'll just toss a few more pins back in there and give that another whirl. Okay, that is going to have to do. I'm glad I switched to black thread though. Okay, final press of the whole neckline, and then this one is done. Okay, so what do you think? I really like it. I think it's really fun. It's cool. It's totally comfortable and wearable, whereas before neither of those two pieces were going to be worn. What I'm really excited about though are the possibilities that this method holds for making things bigger by adding just the one panel and then shifting over the center. So by shifting the center, you can just add a panel to one side and yet maintain a symmetrical fit of your garment. So I had lots of fun with that. That was a nice, quick and creative way to go. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time on Catherine Sews, you take care.